Good morning, everyone. Today, I will present the analysis of one of the most very important foreign policy doctrine in modern history of the Turkey, the zero problems with neighbors, policy development that during the early years of the Justice and the Development Party, or shortly that AK Party. This concept not only symbolized shift in Turkey's diplomatic outlook, but also the represented broader vision for Turkey's regional and the global role in 21st century. Let's start to the background of came AK Party. AK Party came to the power in 2002. Turkey faced in that time strained relations with many of their neighbors like Greece, Syria, Iraq, and Armenia in the Middle East. There was a limited influence of Middle East also. The party's leadership, especially the Prime Minister, nowadays President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and the Foreign Policy Advisor, Ahmet Davutoğlu, redefined the Turkey's foreign policy relations in a many cooperative and the multi-dimensional ways. That was interesting book. Ahmet Davutoğlu's strategic depth became an intellectual foundation of a new approach, because in that book Davutoğlu argued that Turkey's geography and the Ottoman heritage gave to a strategic depth for Turkey, because it's a central position Turkey is in a central position connecting Europe, Asia, and the Middle East also, and that he proposed Turkey should move beyond the defense and security-based foreign policy and instead engage its neighbors through diplomacy, economics, and the cultural ties. And after that, his idea became the doctrine zero problems with neighbors. Let's move the key principles of this doctrine that was, for example, eliminating political and military tensions with neighbor states, also promoting regional cooperation and interdependence, especially through trade and economical integrations. In other slides, I will tell the examples, but now what I want to share is that they already make their economical integration cooperation with Iraq after this zero problem with neighbors doctrine, and also they achieve a multidimensional diplomacy, engaging not just the government but also the business, NGOs, and the cultural actors, and the soft power and the cultural diplomacy using the shares Turkey's history, religion, and the culture to build trust. Now they already did it, because whole the world watching Turkish disease, and Turkish history, Turkish culture became more popular than that time, and also the balanced relations between the West and the Muslim world, that maintaining NATO and the European Union, while the strengthening links with Middle East, Balkans, and the Caucasus also. And let's to the examples and the implementations in 2003 until 2010. That in this year's doctrine produced visible diplomatic and economic results, because Turkey normalized relations with Syria. Two countries abolished visa requirement, held joint cabinet meetings, and also increased trade over 2 billion by 2010. And also Turkey also improved relations with Iraq, even mediating was at Baghdad and the Kurdish regional government. Also Turkey reconciled with Armenia through the 2009. That protocol was cooperation with Greece and Bulgaria. Also, the country became a mediator regional in conflicts between Israel and Syria in 2008, and also the became a mediator between Afghanistan and Pakistan through the trilateral diplomacy. There was also regional and domestic context supporting the success. At first, was that regional environment of the 2000s and relatively stable there, and were no major wars near the Turkey's borders. But before that time, there was so many border conflicts between the neighbor countries. And secondly, Turkey economically was booming, which allowed the government to use trade and investment and diplomatic tools. And the third one is AK Parti's domestic political dominance and the European Union's membership gave credibility to its new civilian-led foreign policy, not to joining the European Union, but the pursuit of the European Union membership. They want to be a part of the European Union, but it's not happening, unfortunately. But problems of AK Party started when was the Arab Spring in 2011, because how the AK Party was to be politically, diplomatically, with good relations with the government, with the Arabs, or with neighbor countries, but they faced moral and strategic dilemmas, because in Syria that relations with Bashar al-Assad's regime broke down completely, because Turkey supported the opposition part, and also praised the partnership turned into open hostility, leading the border tensions and also refugees crisis and the direct military involvement. Also, there was and in Egypt, also Turkey backed the Muslim Brotherhood government of Mohammed Morsi, and it's a position that aligns the new military regime after the 2013 scope. And the relations with Israel was also not good because of the Gaza, because Turkey is like Muslim country and they are supporting Gaza, and to make a relation with Israel started to be hard, because Israel also deteriorated after the 2010, after the Mavi Marmara incident, and Israel forced attacked Turkish air flotilla heading in Gaza. When I was searching information about the AK Party, there was a critics of scientists for AK Party. For example, the Ali Askarov, he argued that policy was idealist but unrealistic. It ignores the deep structural conflicts in the Middle East, and also that Bülent Arash also saying that points of it that while the doctrine initially enhanced but Turkey's soft power, it lacks flexibility when regional conditions changed, and so etc. Like this are like these comments for AK Party's rule in a government. And after the 2010, the Turkey gradually abandoned their problems doctrine and moved towards the assertive and security-focused foreign policy. For example, interventions in Syria, involvement in Libya, and the actions in the Eastern and the Mediterranean, also the Caucasus, reflected a new, more pragmatic approach. And in a conclusion, what I want to mention that there are problems with neighbors doctrine, or the AK Party was one of the most ambitious foreign policy experiments in modern Turkish history, because they built a new history of independent Turkey, and also it symbolized the confident and the outward-looking Turkey like a country to transform its geography from a zone of conflict into a zone of cooperation. Things like that. There was always conflicts. There was always misunderstandings with neighbor countries, and like that. For example, in Kyrgyzstan, we have just 4 neighbor countries, and they are neighbor countries. But in Turkey, there is so much, and be in a diplomatic relation, in a good relation with neighbors. It was not so easy. It's so difficult, and also build a like this, make a transform to in a conflict zone to the cooperation zone. It's so good, and also it's earlier the policy succeeded in expanding Turkey's influence, improving the regional relations, and promoting an image of peace and dialogue. But unfortunately, the rapidly changing relates Middle East after the 2011, especially because of the Syrian war, the rise of new security threats, and the ideological polarization exposed like a limits of ideological vision. And in the end, what I want to mention is that there was a famous saying that it's easy to have zero problems in theory, but impossible in a neighborhood full on conflicts. And it was the Korean still leaves behind the important lesson like diplomacy, economic cooperation, and soft power are essential tools for international relations, even that in a turbulent region. And the foreign policy is not about avoiding problems, but it's about what's transforming crisis into opportunities, into relations and cooperations. Thank you for your attention.